An important aspect of epilepsy that needs to be talked about more, that isn't, seizures aside, how epilepsy impacts behaviors and even personality. Overall, it has a great impact on mood states and who you are as a person, just because also we have different brains where obviously we have epilepsy, so it affects far beyond that. Like when I was in high school and diagnosed with epilepsy, I was never told or taught or explained how any of my symptoms or the seizures or even the medication I was on had such a great impact on me as a person, and also could be an explanation for a multitude of things. So there's definitely a link between mood disorders and epilepsy. Many people with epilepsy experience mood disorders or mood swings, disagreeable changes in their moods. And this is a link between seizures and mood disorders that have been observed for quite some time. Mood disorders in people with epilepsy are very important and can greatly impact a person's daily activity and quality of life. These feelings may be present most of the time or appear just before, during, or after a seizure. Some people may become depressed, others become irritable. And the most common disorder is major depression and dysthymia. Dysthymia, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Some people have milder forms of depression that may also affect quality of life and their response to treatment. And anxiety is quite common. And that's why it's so important, in order to properly respond to these mood disorders that are so often comorbid with epilepsy, it just comes with the territory, to be aware that this is common. And recognizing the mood disorders. Many patients experience problems with mood. And how do you know if you need treatment and there's something going on is if it affects your job and relationship and your ability to lead a normal life. Usually that's an indication that the symptoms are far above what's considered normal or average. And it is known that people with epilepsy are more likely to have mental health conditions. This may be a result of the condition itself or the medication side effects. But even people with well-controlled epilepsy are still at risk. Emotional health problems that may affect people with epilepsy, as mentioned before, depression, anxiety, and then of course, thoughts and behaviors. So it is quite serious to be aware and be able to treat and respond to the various things that come along with epilepsy, not just the seizures alone. And interestingly enough, personality traits of someone with epilepsy can include low self-directedness, high novelty seeking, harm avoidance, and impulsiveness. Here's another example of how the brain is affected from every seizure you may have. Before a seizure, you may feel irritable, anxious, depressed, or even aggressive. For me, also, I can be very confused out of it, unable to respond, things like that. During a seizure, some people with focal seizures may feel fear or joy as a part of their seizure. For me, I can feel fear most of the time. It's usually not a joyful experience. After a seizure, you may feel anxious or depressed for days or weeks. That definitely has been my experience, as parts of the brain are recovering from the seizure. Confusion or memory loss after a seizure can also be very worrying and depressing, which it absolutely can be. When you black out or lose any bout of consciousness where you don't know what is happening, where you haven't taken any like alcohol or like anything like that, it is very alarming and scary to just wake up and either you're like in an ambulance or in a hospital bed or whatever. Like it's very alarming. And medication can have both negative and positive side effects, and it's very important to be aware of that. And there are things you can do to affect the mood effects of epilepsy, such as the anxiety, breaking up tasks into smaller, more manageable ones. For stress, things like exercise, activities, therapies to lower stress, lower your chance of experiencing a seizure. And for lower self-esteem, it can be really hard to socialize when you are dealing with this thing, epilepsy. But maybe joining a group of like-minded people can really help alleviate some of those feelings of loneliness or isolation. Lack of sleep can definitely increase the likelihood for seizure and the mood effects that come with it. So definitely trying to focus on a good night's sleep or going to your doctor if that is also an issue for you. And definitely concentration, memory problems. I have a huge issue with that. I also have ADHD, so doesn't help either. But lists, alarms, sticky notes, any visual cue to help you remember. There's no shame in any of that. Just do whatever you have to do, even if it's like 1,000 sticky notes, who cares? Use them. And lastly, talking to someone. It can be hard to reach out for help or admit that you need help, but truly it is there for a reason. And sometimes we all need help, myself included.